Welcome to Voyage of the Geek for another week, a show where we do post reactions to classic films from across time and genre. We have a couple of standard warnings in place. First off, if you haven't seen the film, there will be massive spoilers discussed to the point where you might not even need to see the film based on this show. And secondly, truth mileage may vary. There is spurious content abounds. Joining me as always, Dan Miller, Tom McGill, and tonight we're going to take a look at a piece of classic sci-fi cinema from the Disney studio, from a time long before they purchased Marvel, Lucasfilm, Pixar, and everything else on the planet. It is the 1980 sci-fi adventure thriller, The Black Hole.
What is your industry? How many of you are there?
The 1980 sci-fi classic, The Black Hole, and Tom corrected me off air. It is correctly December 21, 1979. It is a Walt Disney Studio production, and it was released, to give you a little bit of a timeline, it was released around about 9 days after Star Trek, the motion picture. And Tom, I don't know whether you noticed, but this film, similar to the Star Trek motion picture, has the music piece at the start.
The overture.
The overture.
Yeah, depending on what version of the Black Hole you get.
Yeah.
But the one that I saw on Disney Plus,
Yep.
they played full length with the overture.
Yeah.
Which is
yeah.
nice.
It is nice. Yeah. Black screen, nothing on it. You start to wonder whether your DVD player is working.
Yeah.
But yeah, it is nice because you get to, and like the Star Trek original film, it also has this, really moving musical piece before the credits actually roll.
A lot of films had Lawrence of Arabia starts like that.
Used to be very common.
But these two were among the last, I think, the last ones that have.
I believe that's correct. Yeah. So, Tommy, when did you find this film? Did you see this as little Tommy?
Yeah, I saw it at the movies. I saw it at
You
the
went to
cinema.
the pictures,
I
yeah?
went to the cinema, to the picture house, and saw it, and then saw it several times again on television.
Yeah.
So I've always ever seen it in German. In German on the cinema, in German in television.
Was it called The Black Hole in German?
Das Schwarze Loch. Yes, exactly. The black hole.
It had an alternative. It was also known as Space Probe. So I'm not sure what market that was in, but it's listed here on IMDb as Space Probe.
That was the R-rated market, no doubt.
That might be why it didn't get a major mainstream release under that name. What about you, Dan?
I don't have much recollection of ever seeing it. I think I might have seen it, or nope, nothing. I got nothing. I don't think I saw it.
You would have seen the cover in the video stores and
Definitely.
DVD stores in the day because it's an impressive looking cover on a DVD, isn't it?
Yes, although we can get into this later, but it had a bit of a stigma of being Disney.
Yes.
So when you're in there as a hardcore rebellious teenager filled with angst,
Yep.
you don't want Disney stuff, man.
Yeah.
You want the hard stuff. Yeah. So
It was certainly out of the Disney wheelhouse, wasn't it? There was no Mickey and Donald content in this. In fact, it's actually quite dark.
This is a big point, is that it's probably the start of their move away from all of the, happy little elves type content that they were making before.
Yeah.
And it spent many years in pre-production and then went on to hiatus. The film went into production in 1974 or something.
Oh, really?
When they first started developing it.
early.
And they had some pretty darker scripts even that they
Yep.
went away from. And then ultimately this and, Disney going towards more adult-oriented films led to the creation of Touchstone Pictures,
Oh, really?
which is this has always been the Disney brand for non-mouse content, non-kitty content.
Yes, yes. The alternate houses that they use to release the not so cutesy stuff. What did we think before we get into the meat on the bone? I guess. What did we think of the music, for starters? I found it very ominous, and that you get sick of it after a while. But when you first hear it
I
in the
don't get
opening
sick of it.
credits, it's
I
pretty
love it.
impressive, isn't it?
I love the soundtrack. I love the ominous, as you said,
Yeah.
the big bass a bit to it. And
Yeah.
the only thing I get sick of is when they go into space, into laser fights. Da, 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 da,
Yeah.
da. That
Yeah.
was very repetitive and it wasn't so good.
Yeah,
But
it
the
stuck out.
opening is it's beautiful.
It's impressive, isn't it? What do you think, Dan?
Yeah, I was immediately when I saw it. I was like, just recently, I was like, oh man, because it really strikes a chord. It gives you a vision. It gives you a tone. It gives you a mood, and it's rememberable. So yeah, I'd encourage anybody to go and find it, check it out. This is the main title sequence from The Black Hole.
And speaking of the title sequence, what did we think of the graphics?
Yeah, it
Because
goes-
if they released this in '74, they wouldn't have been able to do those graphics.
No, these were
Not
the
true.
longest computer-generated graphics of the time, done by John Hughes, who ultimately founded Rhythm and Hughes.
Oh, really?
Yeah, right.
And he made it. It's really just not very impressive by today's standards. We can all do it in 15
Well,
minutes with
yes.
a grid.
You want to describe it?
It
Yeah.
People who
is
haven't
a
seen it?
green. So back in the 70s, computer monitors were black with green lettering.
Yeah.
Often, this is just the typical
CRT
computer color is green on a black background, and so they have a 3D grid, a grid pattern. Interestingly enough, I saw somebody talking about the title sequence where they, at the very opening, the first time it comes in, when it says the black hole, the grid is not squares, but it's rectangles. And it's the aspect ratio of the cinema screen.
Okay.
And then that gets replaced by the tilting landscape that we go over and under, and that eventually turns into a funnel, which is all squares, proper proper square grids. But yeah, at the start, it's rectangles, which is the aspect of the cinema. Then we go into this grid pattern, and we eventually turn around to go down into a funnel. And at that funnel, at the end of it, everything sort of distorts and it turns into rings, into circles.
Yeah.
So the geometric pattern has been destroyed by the black hole, and we now have something new. We have essentially gone to another thing, to another dimension. We now have circles.
Yeah.
So they're telling the story of the main theme of the movie in those opening credits.
Someone put a lot of time and effort into it, and a lot of thought, and it's impressive for the day. Absolutely, when you consider 9 days earlier the Star Trek motion picture came out, its opening sequence is boring as batshit, right? Because it's really just a starfield background.
This is it here for those watching on the screen. It's this green.
Yeah.
It's reminiscent of something like The Matrix. That green.
It has a sort of Tron feel to it
Yeah,
a little
Tron
bit as
as well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
If you replace the green with that light blue from Tron, you'd easily think that it could easily be a title sequence for Tron.
Yeah.
But yes, there's no way they would have been able to produce that earlier in the day because clearly it's computer generated.
Yeah.
And I think they were using that in a lot of the promo stuff that they were doing. That would appear, that little sequence. And all, from our perspective, it's just a wire mesh that you fly over and go down, around a funnel or something or other.
Yeah.
It's a bit like AI today, right? Everybody, in current day when we're releasing now, everybody's talking about AI this, AI that, and so if you include AI in whatever you're talking about, everybody's ears perk up.
Yeah.
But this one, it's got computer generated images in it. That's the future, man.
Absolutely. I don't know whether there's much CG in the actual film itself.
No, I think that's
No, it's
limited.
only diagrams. They have a lot of spinning spaceships or diagrams that they see on monitors.
Yeah.
But there's plenty of
no,
other
everything
visual
else-
effects in the visual effects in the movie.
Over 100 matte paintings, 550 special effects shots. It's huge.
They
This
threw
film-
plenty at it. It had a budget of 32 million, I believe. I think it was 32. Let me have a quick look.
No,
here.
it's more like 20, and they made 32.
Yes, you're right.
Yeah.
Budget of 20 million estimated, and
Yeah.
35 million US and Canada.
Yeah.
But nothing really, and 35, the same figure for gross worldwide. But I could imagine the syndicated circulation of this thing made a fortune, right? On DVD and
the long-term
video,
yeah.
and I think VHS it must have cleaned up.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah.
All right. Well, the way we usually have a look at these films is we let the narrative drive our discussion through the piece, and we discuss the story beats, and along the way we talk about some trivia and various other aspects of the production process as well. Dan, you are the master of our narrative journey. Where do we start with this one?
Normally we sort of start with just a bit of an overview for people who haven't seen it. So there's like people who haven't seen it, like we're going to talk about everything in it. So spoilers, etc. But for people that haven't seen it or haven't remembered, we usually do a bit of a log line just to try and summarize the movie very quickly. So what I've got for you, I've written a log line. A mad scientist has taken over a spaceship and intends to drive it through a black hole as a scientific experiment. The heroic, trapped crew of the Palomino must uncover the dark secret of the villainous scientist and escape the doomed ship. And a logline has to tell you how it all works out, right?
Yes.
However, they fail to escape. Fortunately, their journey through the black hole is a lot more positive than the mad villainous scientist.
So that's the elevator pitch. That, as you rightly state, normally you're trying to get funding for the film when you have a log line, and you want to be able to reveal what is the actual full plot.
So you don't hide.
It's there's no cliffhangers.
Yeah, you don't have a twist that you'll tell people later.
It's not a marketing piece, but yes, I think that captures it quite well.
Okay. So what I wanted to do, I think about 4 or 5 story beats we'll kind of go through, just major sort of story elements. And the first one is just like the start. You sometimes talk about an inciting incident, you know, what's the inciting incident that kicks off the adventure? So it starts off in a spaceship, right? There's a spaceship that is full of a little tiny crew, and they're off in deep space, and they're doing some exploration thing. They're looking for habitable planets.
Habitable life.
Oh, habitable life. That's right. Yes. And there has been much discussion.
They're like little microbes that want to live on bigger things.
About exactly what.
And it turns out that is that was an error by the actress delivering the line. It was supposed to be habitable worlds.
Oh, okay, habitable worlds.
And she declared that it was habitable life.
Oh, we're essentially fleas for the space dogs.
Looking for habitable life. So here's the question then. Let's start diverging immediately.
Yeah.
Why didn't they fix that?
Yes, exactly.
Because everything was ADR. 90% of the dialogue in this movie was delivered after principal photography.
Yes.
They ADR'd a lot. So indeed, why did they not fix that?
They had 2 shots at it.
Yeah. My hypothesis to go through the thing is this is so tech heavy and so, there's special effects and there's camera match move stuff that they were saying that to do a shot would take all day, and the actors would sit around for 6 hours, and then they'd get up for 5 minutes, and then they'd have to reset, and that, so they might have not done it just because it just takes so long it was just such a slow process.
It's like the actors had plenty of time to rehearse their script, though.
Well, there's that angle to it as well.
Well, while you're describing you're talking about the Palomino.
Right, they're on the Palomino.
Right.
This is our heroes.
Floating through space. Out of the credits, we see the Palomino. Now, who's on the crew of the Palomino? We have the captain.
Yes.
The captain, played by Robert Forster.
Yes.
Who went on to be in Jackie Brown, I believe, Quentin Tarantino's Jackie Brown.
Yes.
He's Captain Dan Holland.
Right.
Captain Dan.
Yes.
We've got Lieutenant Charles Pizer.
Yes.
And
Charlie
Peak. Played by Joseph Bottoms. We've got Dr. Kate McRae.
Right.
What's Dr. Kate McRae's special talent?
Well, first of all, she's probably some sort of scientist, right? So the other 2 guys are probably some sort of military, navy people.
Yep.
So she's some sort of scientist boffin, and she has ESP.
Telepathy.
Extrasensory perception.
Yes. Can she talk to everyone in the crew or just the robot?
I think just the robot.
Well, that's...
We'll get to the robot, but yes.
She has extra sensory. She can talk to robots.
Yes. Remotely.
Just using her mind.
Remotely.
Yes.
Comes in
Why
handy.
she doesn't use a radio, I don't know. Or a small telephone.
So she's basically got built-in Wi-Fi.
Yes, she's got Wi-Fi.
Played by Yvette Mimieux. Would you pronounce it that way, Tom? It's
I would say-
Mimieux.
I would say Yvette Mimieux
Mimieux.
Mimieux.
We've got.
Fun to say.
from
We've got-
Time Machine.
Yes.
Ah, that's
Yes,
right.
that's correct.
Yes.
We've got Harry Booth, played
Yes.
by famous Academy Award-winning Ernest
Famous
Borgnine.
tooth gap,
Yes.
Ernest Borgnine.
Ernest Borgnine, who only plays roles where he is on some sort of ship.
Definitely, he was McHale from McHale's Navy,
That's
famously,
right.
and but he also plays because he was in the Poseidon Adventure
Yes.
as well, and he played the comeuppance, slimy guy that's always out for himself. I believe
He does play that role.
He plays that role quite a
does,
bit,
yeah.
I believe. And then we have Dr. Alex Durant,
Yes.
played by Anthony Perkins.
Yes.
Quite a famous actor.
And who would go on to do some psycho things.
Well, Psycho Things was before this, wasn't it?
Probably
Well,
was, yeah. The
probably
Psycho was
right.
probably in the
Yes.
50s, wasn't it?
Yes.
Yeah, so
Definitely.
obviously the main actor from Psycho.
Yes.
And he plays a scientist-y type guy, hence the Dr. Alex Durant.
Yes.
And
he plays a sycophant, right from the
right
first
from, yes.
right the first time he opens his mouth.
Oh, yes, he's a brown nose.
Yeah.
Yes, he's got his nose well and truly up the Dr.
the black
Hahn's
hole.
right up the black hole expert's backside. Now we have one more crew member of the Palomino.
Yes.
Who's that, Dan?
That is Vincent.
Vincent, the floating R2D2 with laser guns and a trash can
Yes.
lid.
And a hat.
Um,
And big goggly eyes.
What's some main personality traits that Vincent has?
He
Tom?
does love quoting smart little one-liners.
Yes.
Yes.
He has them on the database.
To the point
Yes.
of annoyance.
Oh yeah.
What's that 1950s Atlantic accent? Can you remember what that is? That Atlantic accent that's halfway between England and America. He's
Halfway
kind of
between what is there between?
There's the
Where's
Atlantic.
the island where they speak the Atlantic accent?
No, it's only in
Oh, it's on
movies.
boats.
Yes.
It's
Oh, it's
only
on-
in
okay.
movies.
I know the one you're talking
yes.
about.
It's got some name,
Yes.
but it's that sort of "Hi there, how are you?"
Yeah.
Anyway, he's got this sort of chirpy, happy, annoying personality.
Played by Roddy McDowall,
Yes,
who comes with that accent.
yes.
It sounds like Roddy McDowall in everything
It's
that he's
kind
ever
of
been
half
in.
British, half English, half
Yeah.
American.
If you close your eyes, you
Yeah.
can see the mask, him wearing the mask from Planet of the Apes.
Okay,
It's the exact same voice.
okay, yes.
So yes, Vincent played by Roddy McDowall. Vincent short for something, and we'll discuss that later in the quiz.
Oh God. Okay, so it's some acronym for something.
It's a crazy acronym
Yes.
too. It's an acronym that they came up with clearly just to make the word,
They
to
all
make the
stupid.
name Vincent.
Yes.
They have several acronyms for several robots, and they explain them all in the movie. They mention
There must be a word for a reverse acronym that's not really an acronym. It's the other way around.
Yes, we want to name our company something so that the acronym is this.
Yes,
And then
that's
they
right.
just go away and come up with words.
Yes.
Yep.
Now there's one more hero character who's not on the ship. Should we talk? Oh, maybe we.
Well, he's not on the Palomino.
not on the Palomino.
That's right.
Well, look, let's maybe leave it with just the crew on the ship.
Yeah.
Floating through space.
And what do you think of the spaceship design of the Palomino? What does
terrible.
it look like?
Well, it's very scaffoldy and non-streamlined.
The Palomino. It looks like the lander, the moon lander.
Yeah.
It's kind of got these boxy sort of things with little prong, leggy
Yeah, it looks like
type things.
someone blew up a Cuisinart or some sort of kitchen machine
Yeah.
to some big scale and
Yeah.
added a waffle maker at the base.
Yes.
It's a weird.
It's a water tower
It's a water
Yeah.
tower
with
Yeah,
three
exactly.
thrusters
with
at the
rockets.
bottom.
Yes, it's a rocket-powered water tower. I think.
And,
yeah.
and a deceptive sense of scale. You see the ship going through, and you have no idea of
Yeah.
scale. You can't tell.
Yep.
Then you see the little bridge that they're all in, and you go, "Oh, this is a tiny ship," because we saw the water tower, and now they're in a round
Yep.
bridge, which fits maybe 8 people. And then the next shot is them showing zero gravity. This is pretty cool. The whole film starts. This little small ship has no artificial gravity, and they're all floating in space, which is fantastic. And so we see this shot where Yvette Mimieux and Charlie Pygasa come floating up towards the camera down a really big...
It's a big space.
Huge space.
Yeah.
And so you get totally disoriented. How big is the Palomino?
Yeah, yeah. When it lands on the main ship, bad guy ship, you start to get a sense that it's a big ass ship. But yes, you're right, Tom. Some shots make it seem the space is a bit confusing.
Partially because the cockpit that they're in is actually quite small.
Yeah.
Yeah. So they're in the cockpit, and there's lots of little flashy lights, and there's scanning things everywhere. And this is where we get to the inciting incident, I think. And the inciting incident is, it's like in Star Trek.
Well, of course.
Yes.
There's a bit of a unscheduled course change. They
That's
don't
right.
know what's causing it.
I see something on the scanners, Captain. Yes.
Bring it up on the hologram.
Yes, they have a hologram.
And what is the that?
The that is a black hole.
A very blue.
A blue
Black hole.
Black
Yes.
hole.
Yes.
Yes.
And the color, we have to keep eye on color in this movie.
Yes.
It's a blue black hole at the start. We have the green of the computer graphics. We have the red of the writing.
Yep.
Towards the end of the film, the color of the black hole changes, the color of the environment changes, the color of Maximilian Schell changes.
The black hole was created by creating a whirlpool in a water tank
Yes.
and adding paint,
Yes.
which is not that dissimilar to the cloud UFO effect from Close Encounters. Big, clear water tank with different saline bodies of water in the tank. So you've got like the salty water and the non-salty water that don't mix, and then you pour in a bunch of paint and you get this
In
bellowing...
between, along the halocline, between
Yeah.
the two levels, yes.
Yeah, you get this bellowing sort of smoky effect. Well, what they've done here is just created a big whirlpool and poured in a bunch of paint, and that's how they've got the black hole, and it's an impressive looking thing.
And in front of the black hole, they see that there is a spaceship. And they identify the spaceship as the something Cygnus.
Yep.
And the Cygnus, they know, is a ship that went off into space.
It's been missing
a while ago, and it's been missing,
20,
then
20
brings
30
us
years or something.
To, what's her name again?
Kate.
Kate.
Kate
Kate
McRae.
McRae. Yeah, that's her second. So, what's her role in the movie? Is she's a scientist, but
Yep.
we assume that because she doesn't really do much science,
No, she
science
doesn't.
stuff.
Yes.
No.
But her main role is to be the daughter of a guy who is on the ship.
Yes, have a connection.
Well, the rest
even
of the
that
films-
role is, they probably didn't exploit that storyline as much as they could have.
So Kate's father was on the original crew of the Cygnus, which has
Yes.
been missing the ship's been missing for 20 years.
Yes.
20, 30 years, something like that.
So they see this, and then Captain Holland, or whatever his name was, says, well, we should investigate. Oh, they also noticed that the Cygnus is not getting sucked into the black hole,
Yes, it hasn't moved a centimetre.
right? Because it's got some sort of anti-gravity bubble. It's protecting it from going into the black hole.
So they need to check it out.
They need to check it out. So they fly up to it in their spaceship, and they clonk into a little meteor or something
They
or
try
other.
to make contact. They don't. The ship appears dead. They fly past it, and they fly a bit too far
Yes.
past it, and they get sucked into the black hole.
Just a little bit, though.
Just a little bit, just enough to make the panels fall off the wall.
That's right. The paddles fall off or something, and they had to fix it.
Yes.
And,
Blow a bit of steam.
yes, steam came
Steam
out.
comes out, and now they have to land. And as they go back to, we see that the robot Vincent can go outside. He can see that he has electromagnetic bubbles on his feet that
Yep.
he can sort of magnetically attach to the outside of the ship. We can see that he has a magnetic little reel that he can shoot out. So
Yep.
he's got gadgets.
We learn a little bit.
We learned the ESP thing at the time.
Yes, and we also learn the connection that the crew has to Vincent in that piece as well.
Yep.
There's a bit of overacting by Charlie about how nonchalant Captain Dan is about letting Vincent float off into the black hole, and Captain Dan quickly corrects him, says, we all care about Vincent, sort of thing. But Vincent's sort of a mechanic, butler slash fix-it.
Scientist,
Yep.
general knowledge.
Yep.
Yeah.
He's R2D2.
Yes. Yeah. Who can talk.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right, so they have to land on the big, gigantic spaceship.
They've damaged the ship.
Yeah,
the
so
Palomino is
they're
damaged.
forced to land. So there we go. Now, the big ship is called the Cygnus, and it looks like what does it look like? It looks a bit like an aircraft carrier.
It does, yeah, with a
Looks-
sort of control tower at one end.
I think they were going for Gothic Cathedral.
Yes, an aircraft carrier mixed with a Gothic cathedral.
Lots of scaffolding sort of beam in between. So you got the tall control tower at one end and a big, long, maybe more accurately than an aircraft carrier would be a cargo ship.
Maybe a cargo ship, yeah.
With it's got the tank, like a tanker or something, where it's got this big long part out the front, but right at the
structure.
very back of it is the control sort of tower, but very scaffolding. And when they when they decide that they have to land, all the lights are still off, and
That's
no
right.
one has responded. And then
Yes.
when all the lights come on,
Yes.
it's stunning.
Yeah, yeah.
It's a really
this
good
ship,
effect.
We say scaffolding and cathedral airplane carrier, but it detracts from the visuals, which is that this ship is mainly made from glass.
Yes,
It is so much glass, thin glass separating the interior from the exterior.
because that's what you
space.
make a spaceship out of.
And a load of little tiny brass rods that make up the scaffold
Yeah.
on the outside.
Yeah.
And that was like a
Looks very
deliberate
brittle.
design decision that I think the original concept art
Yeah.
had plating on the outside. So, it had this this surface covering, but they decided, we'll pull that off and kind of expose all of that stuff.
The model was 3.5 meters long, and when they had to transport it from where they built it to where they were going to film it, they couldn't put it in the crates because it was so delicate. And the way they shipped it, they turned it upside down, and essentially they built a hammock for it to rest upside down. So all these spirals and these towers wouldn't break off. They just essentially suspended upside down and
Yep.
got transported that way.
You mentioned before, Tom, the zero gravity. I did read somewhere that there was a plan to make this entire film in zero gravity.
Yes.
And then they abandoned it, thank fuck.
Well, it makes sense. If the guy has the technology to do artificial gravity to suspend himself
Yeah.
away from a black hole, he probably funnels that energy to
And
make
but
gravity
they
on
made
the
the
boat.
decision for cost,
the
didn't
ship.
they?
Yeah, yeah,
It was
yeah.
going to just cost an absolute fortune.
he's
Imagine
the
the
master
whole
of
film
gravity.
done on wire work.
Oh, yeah.
Yvette Mimieux had to, so she has that hairdo which keeps all the hair together because they were so they couldn't do long hair. And I read about the actresses that went before her, before she was cast. So they passed over Sigourney Weaver. Sigourney Weaver just had filmed Alien, but Alien hadn't come out yet. And so she was pretty much unknown, and the casting director vetoed her because
She had a weird name.
her name wasn't pretty enough. Yeah, her name was weird for the credits.
It's a space movie. You got to have weird names.
Of course you do.
Yeah, Yvette Mimieux is not.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly.
They considered Linda Evans, who became famous in Dynasty. They had then her actress, which is Jennifer O'Neill. And Jennifer O'Neill has long hair, and she had to cut her hair, and she was distraught about that. So
And then didn't
She
get
was
the
a
gig.
model. She was a model, like a hair model or
hair
something.
model. And Vidal Sassoon cut it sort of an inch at a time, and she fortified herself with wine in between cuts.
And then
until
didn't get the role.
No, well, she had the role already. She had already filmed like the first little bits of it, or test films. But then on that day, after all those wines, she went and had a car accident on the way home,
Oh, really?
and was unconscious for 4 hours and went to hospital and everything, and then lost the role due to that.
Wow.
And then
Lost-
Yvette Mimieux got it,
Lost her hair, lost the role, lost her car. That is a bad day.
and probably spilled some wine.
So all the lights come on.
Yes. So they dock with the ship, and they board the ship. So we're now into the next story beat, which
Yes.
is the arrival on the ship, and they start looking around, and it's a bit of a kind of a concerning, spooky place.
There's still no contact with anybody yet. Just doors opening and little monorail cars turning up, as if to say, go through this door and sit in that cart, and they go ahead and do those things.
But
And everything's
They
very
were disarmed. As
Yep.
soon as they came out of the Palomino, they were holding weapons, which built-in laser beams blew away their weapons. So they were disarmed, and I believe Vincent even got blasted across
Yes, his weapons were
across the floor.
dysfunctional.
But yes, they proceed to jump in the mono car and go wherever it's
But
designed
now
to
the
take them.
filmmakers managed to show a good sense of scale.
Yes.
They really
Yes.
show us how big that bloody thing is.
Yeah.
And also, even the rooms that they walk, the hallways. I mean, why would you build a spaceship of that with so much wasted space?
Yes, it is huge.
Well, I think the original one had a lot of crew.
Yeah, but not the reason to have 4 lanes wide.
Yeah,
18 feet ceilings.
18-foot ceilings.
Yeah.
I don't know, but it looks epic. So there's
looks
kind
epic.
of minimalist, sort of humongous, and there's a lot of matte paintings all through it.
And the idea again is to look, Gothic
Epic.
cathedral,
Yeah.
church-like. So always pyramids, always wide bases with narrow tops. Lots of triangular pyramids.
Interesting
in the film.
scaffolding on the inside. All right, so they eventually do start to meet the crew. And the crew seem to be, they're all wearing robes, right? There's kind of two types of crew on the ship. A bunch of people wearing robes
Well,
with
we're
masks.
supposed to know that these are robots.
Yes.
Oh, sorry, they're not people, they're robots.
Yes.
With robes with sort of
Mirrored masks.
Yeah. And then there's some other robot chaps, who are, they've got helmets on and they walk like,
Very robotic.
yes, they walk like the
They
most,
goose
Stiff
step.
leg. And,
yes, they walk like the most robot,
They goose step through the ship and they have Darth Vader mouths.
Yes.
the most robot you've ever seen.
Yes.
And then eventually, they arrive. They get brought to like the bridge, and the bridge. What's your impression of the bridge? It's big.
There's where the money went.
Yes.
The money
Yes.
for the set design went into that bridge.
Yes.
It's awesome. All those panels, those lights. It's not just flimsy walls with a few lights blinking here and there. The walls are lights and they're on. And there's people
It's
standing everywhere.
multi-layered levels.
Yeah, multiple levels. Scaffolding that the robot, the robed robots, people, everyone's sort of working. Nobody's paying attention to the visitors. They are alone on the bridge. Well, they're surrounded by working stuff. Yet nobody talks to them, and they're still sort of
Yep.
by themselves.
Yep.
But there is one person who's like probably in some big chair who spins around from the middle of the
First is
room.
Maximilian. First comes the robot.
Yes,
They
we see Maximilian.
Okay, we see Maximilian first. So who's Maximilian then?
It's quite a scary presence in young 1980 Dave.
Okay.
A bit freaky.
Yes.
He's
know.
good. He's awesomely designed.
Yeah.
He looks sturdy. He's tough.
Floating.
Imagine a
Floating.
Swiss Army knife that got crossed with Darth Vader.
Yes. Yeah, with a bit of Cylon from
With a
Battlestar
bucket for a
Galactica.
head.
With a bucket for a head.
Yes.
An evil bucket
Yes.
Evil
for a
bucket,
head.
evil eyes.
Yes.
Come
As
up
red.
on the side like the
As
horns of a
red.
devil.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yes, Swiss Army, and the color of a Swiss Army knife as well. So he
Yes.
is as red
Yes.
as the danger and the evil, and red as the devil.
And
Yes.
and he has arms that can
He's got multiple
pop
arms.
out into blades, spinning blades,
Yes,
and
yes.
things
Yeah,
like
he probably
that.
has a
so-
whisk in there somewhere.
Yeah, he's got all this sort of
vacuum
kitchen-
cleaner.
This the worst kitchen equipment that you've
Yes, we see a bit of a standoff between Vincent and
Maximilian.
Maximilian,
Mm-hmm.
who I can only imagine was named after the actor that plays Reinhardt.
Yes.
No, he was named after Werner Maximilian Freiherr von Braun,
Oh, really?
Yes,
the German rocket
originally.
scientist,
I think originally.
and was spelled Maximilian with a double L.
Oh, really?
And
So Werner
then-
von Braun has Maximilian in his name. He's got about 16 names in his name.
Yeah.
And yeah, so the robot existed already as the name Maximilian before Maximilian Schell was cast. But
Yep.
then when Maximilian Schell was cast, they changed the name of the robot from having a double L to a single L to resemble the name of the actor.
Gotcha.
It takes
Just for
about
extra confusion.
yes, it takes about 15 minutes to understand all of that. But there's a robot called Max, and
Yep.
then there's the captain, who the actor also has Max in his name.
It's his first name.
Yeah.
Dr. Hans Reinhardt,
Is the character's name.
who swings around in the chair in,
Yes.
in the most James Bond.
Twirling
Yes.
mustache.
Yes.
Exactly.
Yes.
And he's ominous looking immediately.
But in this shot, I think he's wearing white.
Exactly.
Yes.
He's currently camouflaged.
Yeah, he's camouflage, right?
Camouflaged as the nice guy, wearing white.
Pretending to be a nice
All the
guy.
heroes are wearing white. Everyone's in white uniform except, or various shades of beige. Kate is a slightly beige brown, and Dr. Durant is slightly beige greeny, grayish. So is
Earth
Harry Booth. But they're all sort of muted earth tones, whereas the robots Maximilian as well as the art guard robots, they're all these saturated red.
Yeah. It's important to note that Maximilian doesn't speak, the robot. The bad
robot.
henchman robot.
The Swiss Army knife.
The Swiss Army knife. He portrays quite an ominous role throughout the film, but never speaks.
He just menaces.
Yes.
Yeah. All right. So we get the story. We get the what's the deal? So we got to answer the question: what's going on? What is the deal here?
Yes, why? So I think we didn't mention that they knew that the Cygnus had been recalled to Earth. And here they find it floating in space.
Yes.
And Kate's dad was on it. So there's a mystery to unravel. And so the first thing they ask, why did you not come back? Where's my dad?
And Reinhardt says, I just sent them all back.
Yeah. Didn't they come back? Didn't they come back?
Yes.
Yeah, I totally sent them all back.
Yeah. Played the dumbass
I
role.
put them in the mail years ago.
Yeah, what's the problem?
So this whole sequence on the bridge when Reinhardt reveals himself is all of the exposition comes out through that main sequence, that main scene, where he reveals how long he's been in space and that he sent the crew back and that he built the robots.
He built the robot. So that's his story, right?
And he's developed a power source to
Yeah, and he's got the bubble of the gravity bubble surrounding the Cygnus, and he's just cruising around the black hole, and everything's cool, right? All right. I think they then go to dinner. He invites them to dinner.
Well, they ask for help. They want parts.
Yep.
And the doctor
Yes.
offers the parts and sends Maximilian to requisition the parts for them. And the crew sort of split up a little bit, where Captain Dan, Charlie has been back through this whole exposition scene. Charlie's back on the ship. He wasn't allowed to come on the monorail journey, but unbeknownst to the rest of the crew, he was brought to the bridge by a bunch of robots. They grabbed him off the Palomino and brought him in. But yes, the Charlie, who was the lieutenant, Captain Dan, Vincent, and I believe Harry go off with Maximilian to requisition the parts. And along the way, various crew members slip off and go and explore a little more. And that's where Harry discovers a couple of things. He discovers the...
So we're moving into the middle story beat.
Yes.
This is where people start to get a bit suspicious of what's going on.
That's right.
So what were some of the things that people started to get suspicious about?
Because I think Captain Dan also goes off on his own
Captain
as
Dan
well.
is on the monorail, and he sees that there's a funeral.
Yes.
There's pallbearers bearing a pall, and then shooting it out of the spaceship into the black hole.
Yep.
So robots having a funeral.
Yes.
Harry sneaks off because he's not liking the Dr. Reinhardt from the start. He's a journalist. He wrote about.
He's the ship journalist.
Yeah.
So apparently
Yes.
you send ships out into space at great cost to find inhabitable life.
Yes.
You've got to send a mandatory journalist.
They've got to have somebody who's doing the Twitter
It's
stuff,
like an adventuring
somebody
group.
who's-
They have a bard.
Yeah.
Somebody
Yes.
needs to tell the story.
Pretty much, because
That's
everybody
right.
else has some sort of scientific
on Instagram.
or piloting need to be on the ship.
He's making TikToks.
And then there's a journo over
Day
there.
376.
Yeah.
Still on course. So
But he
sneaks off,
discovers-
and he discovers,
Yeah, he discovers the garden, which is huge.
Yep.
But he also discovers something unique about one of the robots.
Yes.
What was that, Tom?
Limps.
It limped out of the room,
Yes.
and Harry witnessed that.
And we all know that it's impossible for a robot to have a limp.
Yes. It was quickly pointed out later on, Dr. Alex Durand, who's got his head well and truly up Hans Reinhardt's ass, quickly said, well, it's just a robot with a malfunctioning leg.
Yeah, what's
Pretty
the
much.
deal?
You know?
So, pretty soon we end up at the dinner. Can we end up at the dinner now, or we
Let's have dinner, yes.
have
Yes.
dinner?
Let's
Yes.
have beautiful dinner.
So, Reinhardt has changed into his blood red.
Yes. He's also now taking
suit.
on the color of Maximilian and the evil robots.
Yes.
He has an aggressive red to it, to him.
And he now pitches at the dinner. He pitches
Yes.
what he's up to.
Yes.
He's got a cunning plan. And his plan is very science-based. He's been doing differential
Calculations.
equations. Yep. He's been carrying the 7, and he reckons that he can blast the Cygnus through the black hole, and then on the other side,
Yes,
something. And he reckons that that's possible.
Life everlasting, perhaps.
Yes, life
Perhaps
everlasting.
not so last.
Yes, perhaps not.
And he wants the Palomino to monitor the whole thing.
Exactly.
Well, they've got the TikToks. They can probably get.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There might be an Einstein-Rosen bridge to consider, he says.
Yes, sciencey stuff.
There's science technical level.
And our crew member Durant
Yes.
is super keen on this. He's
Alex,
like, hell
Wants to
yeah.
come along.
Oh, yes.
He doesn't want to leave. He wants
Yes.
to go with.
He wants to,
Wants to
Yes.
hold
I think
surf the black
Reinhardt
hole.
Reinhardt says at one point to him, "I sense you are a man who hasn't found a purpose." And his answer was, "Perhaps my purpose is here with you."
Yes. Brown nosing is your purpose,
Yes.
Duran. We've already found that.
So Alex actually makes a decision to go with him
Yes.
into the black hole.
Yes.
But it's important to note that Hans Reinhardt doesn't really plan to take these people
No.
into the black hole. They're just meant to
They weren't
stay on the
there.
outside, and yes.
We weren't in the calculations.
So roundabout now, Vincent is downstairs
Yes.
hanging out with the robots because he's not allowed to go to dinner
With
or
Bob.
something like that.
He meets Bob.
And he meets Bob, who we haven't
Bob.
introduced yet.
That's right, played by Slim Pickens.
Slim Pickens. Yes.
And in the truest yeehaw accent
Yes.
throughout the whole film is a beaten up prior model version of Vincent.
Yes.
Also a
Slim
floaty
Pickens
robot.
is always playing that role, and that is the way he speaks.
Yeah.
He's
That
a
is-
character.
he's not
he's a
not
character
making up a
actor.
character. He
Yeah.
just plays himself.
Yes. So we meet Bob, who's basically the same as Vincent.
Yes.
Except he's some older model. He's all
And he's
beaten up.
been bashed up.
Yes.
Yeah.
And he's a little bit afraid of Maximilian.
Yeah.
Big time. Yeah.
Yep. He's got little cables hanging out all of him. His eyes are
He's-
crooked.
he's a
He
disaster.
only has one leg.
Yes.
He's been picked on
He's-
by the other
He's in
robots.
fact much more of a disaster than the people who made the model actually envisaged.
Yes.
Because
Because the director didn't find it beaten up enough.
yes,
And he
and
went-
decided to edit.
Edit the maquette, the clay maquette.
Yes, just a little bit. And how did he do that?
He took a baseball bat to it and just kicked the shit out of it. I mean, that's what George Lucas did as well when they showed him the helmets of the X-Wing fighter pilots.
Mm-hmm.
And he said they need to be... No, they made these beautiful helmets, and he looked that they're not... And he just took them and slammed them on the floor and kicked them around the hallway and scraped them on things to... He wanted a lived-in, dirty
Yeah.
universe.
But I'm sure that the people that made those models were probably horrified.
Yes.
It's like, well, we could have done that
No.
without the baseball
No, sometimes
bat.
the director just has to bring his point across, and it's his prerogative.
Now, Bob is another exposition device and starts to reveal things to Vincent.
Yes.
Yeah, this is the death ship.
This is a death ship. Yes.
Yes, you're in grave danger.
Yes.
Danger. Yes, exactly.
Yes.
In danger. Yeah, you're right.
Yeah. So, Bob basically says, yeah, this is a death ship, and good old Mr. Reinhardt has basically, I don't know, been doing horrible things to the crew.
Yes, it turns out that the robots in the
Robes.
robes with the mirrored masks are in fact jury-rigged crew members.
They are
that have
zombie
that have had
cyborgs.
procedures done to them
Procedures.
to make them subordinate and
Yes.
do as they're told. Possibly as a result of being called back to Earth, and he didn't want to go back to Earth. And
Well, the story is, right, that Reinhardt said, I'm the boss now, I'm going to do my something or other. And then there was a rebellion on the ship. Mutiny.
yep, led by the father of Dr. McRae.
Of Kate's
McRae's.
father. And then they all got zombie cyborged.
Yes.
It is not absolutely clear how. You know, there's a whole ship of hundreds of people rebelling against one person who
Yeah.
presumably does not yet have Maximilian
Yes.
or his robot army.
Yes.
So how he managed to... That would be the interesting story.
Yes,
Would be an interesting
yes,
story.
that's not revealed.
Yes, and actually having that revealed, I think would be a bit of an improvement in the story.
Yes,
Like, for example, if they found, like, signs of the rebellion, or they found, messages from Kate's father saying to anybody who can read
Yes.
this, I must tell this story
Yes,
or
yes.
something or other.
When you read this, I will be dead.
Yes, when you read this, I'll be dead. And the other thing that I was thinking is, Kate, what's her name, she's a telepathic extrasensory perception. So why couldn't they have, spoiler alert, they don't, why couldn't they have one of the robed characters be her father?
Yes.
But the only way she can contact
She's receiving messages and
Yes.
doesn't know where they're coming from.
ESP
yes,
somehow, and
yes.
they have a discussion and they,
Yeah.
you know.
So we get this situation where Bob's downstairs spilling the beans to
Yes.
Vincent.
Yes.
But up in the dinner at the dinner party, Reinhard leaves because a probe that he sent into the black hole is now coming back, and we get this conversation where the crew are starting to share their observations.
Yes.
And so you've got Alex, who's still on Reinhardt's bandwagon. And dismisses everything, whereas Harry reveals the limping robot and the funeral. You know, Captain Dan reveals the funeral, and they start to and Harry puts forward a plan that why don't we overpower Reinhardt and take the whole ship back, because if he's come up with a power solution to keep it stationary in the black hole, then there should be enough. There's probably enough power to get away, right? So at that point, after Reinhardt's left the dinner, they sort of start to entertain this plan to take the ship from Reinhardt.
So now we enter the penultimate story part,
Yeah.
which is things get ugly.
Well, Vincent reveals what he has learnt from Bob with the rest of the crew. With the absence of Kate,
How does he do
Kate
that,
and
though?
Alex are off with Reinhardt back on the bridge, but Vincent reveals that the crew are actually robots and everything, and then Captain Dan realizes, okay, now we do have to take over the ship because we can't let these poor souls, go unsaved,
Yes.
sort of thing.
Can't-
And then Harry's flipped. And he says, what? And it was his plan to start with, right? And he says, no, we shouldn't do it. If they couldn't do it, if, all those crew couldn't overpower and take control of the ship, what hope do we have? We'll all die. And he starts to become the snivelling rat around that point, doesn't he?
What's the character in Alien name? What's his name?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, the company man.
The company man in Alien. So he's a
Bill
bit like...
Paxton's character.
Yeah, he's a bit like that guy. Okay, yep.
Yep.
Um,
And Kate finds out through telepathy.
that's right. She's receiving telepathic messages from Vincent, who's
Yes,
talking to Bob.
And Captain Dan is saying, tell Kate to come back to the ship. And Vincent is sending a message to Kate saying, come back to the ship. And Kate's back on the bridge with Maximilian and Hans saying, we have to go back to the ship. Oh, really? How did you get that message? And that's revealed that she's telepathic. Then he proceeds to tell him a bunch of stuff that shouldn't get back to the captain, and she just sends that back to Vincent, and Vincent knows everything. And so there's conversations going on from both ends of the ship through their telepathy. And basically, Vincent reveals that all of these robed people are people
Yes.
to Kate.
Yes. And she tells... And then they remove the mask.
Well, she tells Alex, and he doesn't believe it. And so he sort of slinks off to the side and removes the mask off one, and we get a reveal.
Yes.
It's pretty cool.
Yes.
That was a cool reveal. I didn't like that as a kid.
That's a spooky...
That was a spooky thing.
There's a spooky person.
I've often
The
wondered,
person
is
is
that...
Zombified person
I've wondered,
underneath
is
the
that the
mask.
father?
No.
Okay,
so it
they
wasn't the
said,
father.
Well, they said that the father was killed.
Okay.
So I
They kind of
assume
missed
that's
an
not him.
opportunity
Yeah.
there.
Could
Why
have been
did
the
they...
father. Her
Yeah.
reaction could have been to seeing her own father in the zombified, because they also had the missing eyes, didn't they?
They had like black pupils.
Huge
you know,
pupils
they
and
were-
weird
yeah.
makeup. That was Gary Nelson. That was the director of the film.
I think they missed
Oh,
a trick.
really? That was the
in
guy.
that role. Yeah, he was.
They missed a trick. They should have set it up, I reckon, to say that, that right at the very start, Kate had some problem with her father. Like, when they first see the Cygnus, they say, hey, that's the Cygnus. Wasn't your father on that ship? And Kate says, yeah, he abandoned me 50 years ago. So she's kind of pissed off with him. And then when they do that mask reveal, it's a friggin' dad. Anyway, would have been a bit more dramatic, I thought.
Yes.
All right, so... The plan is starting to come a bit unstuck for Reinhardt. Thought he had it all wrapped up. So we get to the Maximilian kitchen moment, I think is next.
He takes up the. Yep.
So Maximilian has plenty of kitchen appliances attached all over him.
He's got a Cuisinart strapped to his hands.
Yes, this sort of zzz,
And Alex
Spinning
has just found out
Yes.
the secret of the ship.
and they try to make it to the lift,
Yes.
make it to the
They try to
elevator.
escape.
And Maximilian takes it upon himself, not under orders
Yes.
from Reinhardt, but takes it upon himself to rush over,
Yes.
weapons spinning,
Yes.
and come at...
It slices, it dices.
and it goes straight through the big
book
book,
with all the
of
calculations.
calculations that Reinhardt had wanted Alex to take with him
yes, to save.
to save off the ship. Years of calculations.
Yes, to put on a TikTok or something and
Yes.
send back to Earth.
Maximilian shreds his way through,
Julianne.
and we see a rather creepy death scene for a Disney movie.
It's a kind of a gurgling, oh my God.
His reaction
I'm
is
being sliced and diced here.
pretty full
But
on.
you don't see a drop of blood.
don't see
No,
a drop
that
of blood.
time. True to a Disney
We
film.
only see the blades going through the book from a certain angle.
Yes.
And then we see a camera above the book of the guy's face sort of gyrating and making gurgling noises and whatever. And then he's dead.
He falls over and tumbles down into. They have a big hole. Also, there's obviously these
Filled
holes
with
there.
electrical stuff.
There's
And
no
he falls
safety
down.
barriers. There's no OH&S at all.
OH&S, the enemy. Okay.
So that's
So-
number one dead.
So that's
First one.
that's our first character. Yeah, our first character.
This film was initially designed to be a disaster film, like a
It was like a
towering
Poseidon
inferno
adventure.
thing.
Yes,
or
the
something.
initial-
Yeah, that's what they wanted to go for. So
Yeah.
they had always planned to
They
have.
were all the rage in that.
And that's probably why the ship is so big and gigantic and huge. So there's sort of plenty of room for the characters to be marching around up and down, trying to escape disaster on the disaster
crawling
ship
along scaffold.
in its initial version of the story.
Yep.
All right, so the wheels are starting to come off. Reinhardt decides to. What happens? Does Reinhardt actually decide to go through with his? Let's go through the black hole.
Reinhardt orders that the robots take Kate away to be
She's
Take her to
turned
the
into a
hospital.
zombified.
Yeah, that's right.
Take her to the hospital to be zombified.
Yes.
And then on the way to being zombified, she communicates again, because Reinhardt once again has forgotten that she's telepathic.
Yes.
She sends a message to Vincent and says, they're taking me to the hospital to be zombified. And Captain Dan and who else? Charlie, I think,
Well, Charlie and Booth stay on board the Palomino.
That's
get,
right.
Get it ready for liftoff.
because Booth wants out of there.
In fact, yes.
We're all going to die. We've got to go. We're all going to die.
Booth's already off to the Palomino. He's going to bail out.
Well, him and Charlie are left on the Palomino to
Yep,
get
while
ready
Captain
to go.
Dan goes back.
While Dan goes back with Vincent and Bob
Mm-hmm.
to save Kate.
Okay. But the end result is that for some reason Charlie has to
Well, they
come back in.
I think they also get attacked by the robots, and they have to come out and guns up. Oh no! Because
Well, he tells
Captain Dan is pinned
Charlie
down.
to take off.
Captain Dan is pinned
Yeah,
down by the
he's-
robots.
He's
and
pinned down. He
can't
says,
move.
"Get out of here.
Get out of here!
Save
flee."
yourself." And then Charlie says, "No, I'm on my way." And then
Okay.
Booth, Harry says,
Oh, my leg!
"Oh, I can't
Oh,
make it."
That's right. Yeah, that's right.
Sniveling worm
Yes.
sort of reaction on my leg, and then as soon as
Yes.
Charlie leaves, he gets up, no problem with the leg, gets on the Palomino and starts to make ready to blast off.
And he does indeed blast off.
He does blast off
Yes.
and then gets
Blasted.
blasted.
In fact, Reinhardt says, shoot him before he crashes into the ship.
and then they shoot it, and because they shoot it, it crashes into the ship. And takes out something really vital. Takes out a vital gravity something
Yes.
that protected the ship from
That bubble.
from space rocks.
Yes.
And so now the space rocks descend.
The space meteors descend.
That's right.
All
In
the
fact, these things that you can see on our screen, giant orange glowing.
Yes. Referred to in the movie
Meteors.
as meteorites, and that
Yeah.
would be incorrect, wouldn't it, Tommy?
No, it wouldn't be. No, a meteorite is a rock that landed on Earth.
It's got to be inside the Earth's atmosphere to
Yes,
be
it has to be landed.
a meteorite.
It has a
wow.
meteor if it's through the atmosphere.
Yep.
Yep.
And meteorite when it's a rock on the surface of the Earth.
Yes. So these meteorites,
asteroids.
meteors, they're getting sucked into the black hole at exactly the same time. So Reinhardt, with all his calculations, didn't factor in that maybe you've got to time it right? So that there's no meteor shower at the exact
Well,
same
the
time.
way
But-
I think it's just a visual thing that the budget was maybe not. The way I imagine it is this is a black hole and shit goes flying past all the time.
Yes.
So Reinhardt has his safety bubble around it and protects him from, essentially, if they had had more money to throw at the special effects, we would have constantly seen stuff going past the ship.
Yep.
And what's happening now is the shields are down, and therefore the stuff comes in and hits the ship. The stuff that is, I think, always there anyway.
Yes.
And there's one particularly spectacular scene where a giant meteor crashes through the roof of the ship
Yeah.
Yes.
and comes barreling down.
Rolling down
And
through
I
the
mean-
centre.
I mean, humongous. It's like the size of a shopping mall.
Yes.
You know, rolling down. It's sort of like the Indiana Jones.
It's Indiana Jones reminiscent, isn't it?
Yeah,
the
yeah.
boulder.
Yeah, and it's glowing orange.
And it makes for a classic shot from the film of them running across a gantry with it in the background coming
Yeah.
towards them.
Yeah, spectacular.
Those types of moments in this film, there's quite a few of them.
I don't want to spoil my conclusion, but there's a very tech demo
Yes.
sort of aspects to this thing.
A
you
couple
know.
of tick the box scenarios.
There's loads of
Yes.
tech demo stuff in the thing. All right, so let's sort of, because we're starting to get towards a conclusion for this story. It turns into a bit of a sort of a laser battle thing. There's like
Yep.
Pachoo and Bob and Vincent have to fight Maximilian,
Yes.
and it's all red, and there's red smoke, and there's red laser beams, and poor old Bob doesn't make it.
Bob gets
Well,
hit.
I think at this point is when the black hole turns red as well. So we always had a blue black hole
yes,
for the start of the film, and now we're sort of moving closer towards it, and it's turning red. Everything is turning red around it.
Yep. Yeah, the
everything's-
meteors are all kind of
Meteors
red,
are red.
orange.
The ship disintegrates.
just the general colour palette.
The walls disintegrate, and there's lots of steam and fog, and everything is bathed in red light.
Now, what's their plan to get off the ship? Because the Palomino is destroyed now. Harry has taken off and been blown out of the sky.
I feel
That's the comeuppance for the snivelling worm.
I feel the writers are starting to find themselves into a writing corner,
Yes.
sort of stuck in this corner. There's some sort of probe other ship thing,
Yeah,
something.
they had it earlier.
It's the probe
Reinhardt-
that returned
from the event horizon.
Was that
He
the same
said-
probe?
Yes,
It's the
that
same
was
probe.
exactly the same probe.
Okay.
Which interestingly is fueled up again.
Yes, ready to go.
Oh no, that's because the ship gets damaged, and Reinhardt sends Maximilian and says, "Prepare the probe," because he knows that
that's
the
right.
sickness is going down. So I'm imagining that we didn't see it, but maybe Maximilian pressed some buttons and got
Yes.
the automatic
Yeah.
refilling system, programmed the course,
Well, he
got
did-
the thing ready.
He did appear out of nowhere at the probe, right? That's
Yeah.
where Maximilian revealed himself, right? Because
True.
they were fighting robots up until then, but when Maximilian revealed himself and Bob and Vincent had to fight him, that was at the probe.
Right. So that was the probe that Reinhardt was going to escape on, right?
Yes.
Are we all agreed?
Yes.
Okay.
But still go through the black hole with it.
Okay.
Yeah, the course is programmed now.
Yes.
Okay. And the heroes get onto that very probe.
But they don't know.
Okay. That it's
They don't know.
programmed to go
in.
through.
They want to
the-
use it as an escape vehicle.
That's right.
And just before Maximilian goes and leaves Reinhardt, this is like we essentially skipped the bad guys' comeuppance, right?
The demise.
Before they-
it's
True.
not his demise.
It's partial demise.
Yes.
He's pinned down. The ship disintegrates,
It's
and
one
he
of the
gets,
large screens.
He gets pinned down by the one thing that he was master of, which
Yes.
is gravity.
and
Yeah.
well, he was also
Gravity.
master of screens.
yes.
Because he had many of them.
Gravity becomes his undoing.
Yes. So he's pinned in the ship, and
And
he
he
can't
says
escape.
to Maximilian, "Help me," because Maximilian at this point is still with
Yes,
him, right?
yes.
The elevator closed,
Yeah.
doors closed. And
No help from
doesn't
Maximilian.
let-
And
no.
then he tries to reach out to the android/humans to help him. No help there either.
No, that was to be expected.
Yeah.
Comeuppance is happening. So now we move into the final story beat.
Yes.
The
Fighting
conclusion.
Maximilian. We're fighting Maximilian. Are we drilling him to death?
Yes, we
Yes,
drill. So Maximilian has been killed in inverted commas.
By Vincent, which
That's
is
right.
also a reverse comeuppance because Maximilian drilled Dr. Durant with his things.
And there was a Maximilian had a design flaw when fighting small round robots.
Yes.
His arms were too wide apart.
Yes.
And the robot was able to come straight in the middle, and his spinning blades couldn't reach the robot. So yes,
So,
Maximilian could do this
there's a big bit-
and this, but not that.
Yes. limited range of movement.
Yep.
Yes,
And
unfortunately.
he is dispatched by Vincent.
And he screams. This is the only time we hear him make a noise.
No, he does too. Yeah.
Because he does go
Yes.
as he
Yes.
floats up into space,
And he floats out. Yes, out into space.
flies out into space, down into the black hole, down the funnel. The garden gets destroyed. Ice immediate. I liked that. The moment
Yeah.
it gets destroyed, everything freezes.
There's a hole in
In
the
a
roof
second,
as
like
well.
everything is frozen. The actors are frozen. The robots are frozen stiff. They're being sucked into space. But somehow they get out of there. I think.
Well, there's a
Vincent-
little contradiction in the
Vincent
science,
flies
isn't
then.
there? So the greenhouse gets a hole in it, and then everything freezes, and the air goes sucking out. But to get into the
The next
the
room, they have
escape
to
vehicle,
open the door.
they have to open the door and walk outside and
close the door.
climb up the bloody thing.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, a little inconsistent.
outside in space. But yes, so they make
Okay.
they blast off.
Yes, so our heroes are now the ones that are left. You know,
So who's
Vincent
left? Charlie,
and-
Captain Dan, Kate, and Vincent.
Yep.
Yes.
Everybody else dead.
Everybody else is dead. So they jump in the probe, and the probe essentially, spoiler alert, goes into the black hole.
Yes.
Yeah.
All right.
They broke up path.
Yep. And there's no manual override.
Yep.
They're in for the long haul.
And now it gets psychic.
And at the same time,
trippy.
the Cygnus is crushed.
Yes.
And it also goes into the black hole.
Yeah, everything now goes into the black hole, and we go into psychedelic world,
Yep.
where we have flashing lights and spinning things. That interior of the ship where they're sitting in, they're spinning, and the walls around are spinning.
Yeah, it
I
looked
couldn't
like
find anything about it, but they must have had some gyroscopic
no,
set.
They would have been
they did.
crook.
You did?
Yep, they
You
built
found something?
Yeah, they built a cylindrical thingy, and I think they had the camera on rails that would go around the outside.
So the camera was spinning, not the
I
people.
don't know
Well,
which. I saw a photo of
The
it.
only
Because
way the only way they were static is if the camera was actually on the same was connected to the set on the outside.
And
because
the
the camera
wall-
was fixed to the set as far as visual.
The walls
and
were
they were
different
spinning.
to where the people are there as well. So
It was on a scaffold. It was like
Yeah.
a cylinder up on a scaffold, and
Yeah.
yeah, pretty cool though.
Yes.
So they're spinning around, and it's craziness, and you've got like close-up camera shots of people's eyes,
Yes.
like zooming in on their iris, and it's all.
And they distort the footage, which I think symbolizes the spaghettification that you get when you go into a black hole, as you get ripped to shreds.
Yes.
As you get essentially, your atoms fall apart.
So then it cuts to a shot of Reinhardt floating through space.
Yeah, now it goes weird.
Yes.
At this point,
Alive.
Until now, I was
Yes.
with it. At that point,
Right.
the film loses.
alive,
Yes.
floating through space.
Yes.
I was 9 years old when I saw this.
And then he sees Maximilian, who's also floating through space,
Yes.
towards the black hole, like going into the black hole.
But Reinhardt's
stop you
hair
there.
is long.
Yeah.
His beard is long. His hair
Yep.
is long.
He's got big
older.
rasta dreads as well.
Didn't he always have that?
No, he's got
He had the
gigantically long
bouffant,
hair.
didn't he? He had the, just
He's
the,
Oh
suddenly
no,
much
this
older.
was super bouffant.
yeah.
Yeah.
So we see this weird scene where Reinhardt sees Maximilian and they come together. The way it was filmed was weird
Yeah,
too, because
yeah.
they come together and embrace almost, and then they turn in the camera, and looks like they're actually
lying down.
having a little lie down together. Like there's an intimate moment going on, and then it cuts to a close-up of Maximilian's helmet. And as we come down, we realise Reinhardt is now inside Maximilian.
He's looking out the bucket.
Yes.
He's in the bucket.
With the red light glowing on his face
Yes,
on
he's
the
inside the
and then-
Maximilian shell, as they
and
say.
you look at it and go, well, you wouldn't fit in there.
Yes.
Because
Your legs have to be
Maximilian's
cut
got
off.
little tiny legs like this. Something's got to give. And then, as we
That's
keep
purgatory
panning
for you.
out, where is Maximilian?
He is in the pits of hell.
He's standing
He's
on a
standing
mountain.
towering on top of a mountain. He's like the Lord of Hell. He's the devil now.
Where are we?
We don't know, but we're pulling back, and there's all these sort of robed figures.
Now, were the robed figures the crew, or
Yes.
so they are the crew? Because there was a lot of them.
One would
He
expect.
was
that
the
they're
Lord
crew.
of them on Cygnus, and now he's the Lord of Hell, and they're with him. They're his minions.
Yeah,
continuing.
and it gets very biblical, doesn't
Yeah,
it?
it does.
In visuals, lots of fire,
Yes.
heaps of
Smoke.
fire, smoke.
Yes.
Devil on the mountain, minions sort of roaming around in robes.
And meanwhile, on the flip side, our other heroes.
Well, it then cuts from that to a cathedral-like stained
Tunnel.
glass tunnel
Yeah.
that we're going through.
Yeah. Yeah. With an angel flying in front of
Yes, an angel. We see an angel with long blonde hair.
Yes.
Once again, keeping with the religious visuals, that this movie has taken a very religious turn in the last sort of 2.5 minutes of the film.
A tone turn.
And then we see the exit point of the black hole, which presumably is on the other side. And out of it comes the probe.
Yes. And in the distance, we see it heading towards a planet.
Yes, we
Very
don't
big
see the
planet.
crew. For all we know,
No, we just see the
we
probe.
know, the crew didn't make it,
Who knows what
but
happened?
the probe did.
Well,
and that-
that's
It's,
interpreted.
it's
Can interpret.
assumed that they made it. It's the happy ending because
My
of the music.
interpretation is that everybody dies. They go in the fucking black hole. They get shredded. They all die.
Yeah.
But Reinhardt and his guys go to hell.
Yes.
And the good guys go to heaven.
Yes.
That's the takeaway. And they're all dead. But the good guys go to heaven, and they go, that's paradise.
Yeah.
That planet is
They
Eden.
found habitable life.
Yes.
Found habitable life in paradise. But I don't like my interpretation. I could be wrong, and I think it's pretty open to interpretation, which is nice.
Yeah.
It's okay to have an open-ended thing.
I think it would have been confusing for kids.
Now,
It's a little confusing.
Oh yes.
Oh, yes,
As I said, I was
definitely.
9 years old at the time, and that
Yeah.
ending just did not deal with me at all.
Now, open to interpretation is the positive way of expressing they didn't know how to end it.
Maybe.
That's what it felt like to me. It felt like they didn't. And it's once again a film, albeit more modern than many of the films that suffer from this, that had an ending without a resolution. You don't see
Yes.
the result of the end.
Yes.
The result of the end would have been, I don't know, reveal Earth or reveal something. Show us.
You kind of
I
got a
don't know.
result for old Reinhardt.
Yeah.
A little bit.
At least
but the
there was
heroes
space
you
in
didn't.
this one where you could resolve it in your mind and be fairly accurate. You could come up with a resolution
Yeah.
yourself that they
Yeah.
did survive. That
Or that they all died, and that's the end.
Yeah.
They went to heaven, and he went to hell.
yeah.
I think,
the
as we alluded to at the start, they started writing this in 1976,
Yeah,
Four, I
74,
think, or
yeah.
for whatever. And they didn't have an ending. And they didn't have an ending all the way up until in production, where they were going to work out the
Because
ending.
the reality is, and here's the thing: if you're a writer, you're making dozens, if not hundreds, of. I'm going to go left here. I'm going to right there. I'm going to left here. You're making decisions that take things in a direction. Whoever wrote in the idea that when they got in the escape vehicle and it was pre-programmed to go into the fucking black hole, they then backed themselves into a corner, right? How do you resolve that? How do they survive that? Whereas all they needed to do was take off and blast or go back to Earth, right? They didn't need to go through the black hole. There was no resolution waiting on the other side. There was no narrative piece. It had to get all very dreamy and weird
Yeah, but
after
it's
that
got-
point to make
the
that
whole film has-
decision make sense.
Has those religious connotations all the way through the Gothic design, the religious comments that he quotes from the Bible several times. Maximilian does, Dr. Durant, whatever.
Reinhardt.
Dr. Reinhardt does. He has this God complex. So I think the film was always leading towards a spiritual ending. They wanted that conclusion that there is, the other side. The other side, be that the other side another dimension, or maybe it's the other side of life,
Yep.
the afterlife.
The negative way of saying it probably is that they didn't have an ending. The slightly more positive way is to say that they had. It's open to interpretation.
Yes.
Another way to express it is that they gave it the best ending that it should have.
Yeah, I know.
That they, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
That they'd baked in, like you said, this sort of
Yes.
spiritual side
yeah.
to
Yeah.
it. And that's the proper ending that it should have.
And you're right.
Whether
If you look at it that
is-
way, Tommy, it's a continuation of those motifs throughout
Whether
the
it's
film.
super compelling or not is perhaps the next question.
Or super Disney.
Super Disney. Or super satisfying.
Yeah.
Compelling or satisfying. And perhaps it's not. One of the things that I think happened is that because there's lots of science stuff in there's lots of a black hole, which was kind of a bit cutting edge for the time, and they've got the computer graphics. It sort of sets the science tone, and thus,
Science versus spirituality.
Yes.
yeah, and they didn't promote the spirituality side of it clearly enough to overcome the science. So
Which
everybody's
made the ending feel out of place.
yes, because everybody thinks
You bring
we're
it back
in the science
to the
zone.
opening credits that we talked about, where we had the green grid, and that goes down the funnel, and all the green squares turn into circles on the other side.
Yeah.
You know, right? I think the whole film is about going through the black hole and finding a change, and we need that change. I don't think they're coming out into another world and then they land on the planet and live happily.
Yeah.
I think they're in a different state of being now.
Yeah.
So in version 2.0 of that film, I think they should have bumped up that a little bit more. That spiritual
Apparently, there
sort
were
of side.
comic books made from this. It was four episodes, and the first 2 episodes are the comic book of the movie, and the other 2 episodes, issues 3 and 4, are the continuing story.
okay.
Oh,
So it'll be interesting
So
to
someone
see what,
wrote it?
Yeah.
There's a lot of merchandise because Star Wars was kicking on as far as merchandise at the same time. They released a lot of merchandise for this movie, but it didn't sell well. But if you've got your hands on a Maximilian action figure out there right now, it's worth an absolute friggin' fortune. Apparently,
Yeah.
they're very sought after.
Probably still features as a kitchen implement. Still use it as a Swiss Army knife.
I kind of wanted to wrap up a little bit just with a talk about the tone, maybe characters, dialogue, those type of things, cinematography, and then finally move into just visual effects, and then I think I'd be done. The tone, I think, also was a little bit mixed in that it was dark and spooky and haunting, but then they also had goofy kind of.
Yep.
Not a fairly cool American word, right? Goofy. It was just a
the
little
comic
bit,
relief to break up the tension a little bit.
yeah, that was a little bit too elevated. I think it was. Yeah, they had this sort of goofy bit to it. So that those two things I felt were sort of fighting against each other.
Yeah,
That again kept you a little bit off balance.
because even prior to Bob in the film, Vincent was a comedy element, albeit uppity.
Kind of bit wisecracky.
Yeah, and then you had Bob that was more sort of knockabout, but yes,
But Bob is the one with the weird accent,
Yeah.
and who they obviously chose the Slim Pickens for that role. They wanted the robot to be quirky.
But even the fight with Vincent and Star, where they're doing the shooting gallery type stuff, they're flipping their
That's
laser
right.
guns
Yeah.
around and doing
And
stuff behind the back
tricks.
and everything. And yes, you're
Yeah.
right. Against the ominous
The
backdrop.
haunting of zombie cyborgs.
Yeah.
If you're going to be doing that stuff, that fights against it a little bit. The other thing that I thought was that probably Vincent and Bob were the most vibrant characters in the whole thing.
Yeah.
They kind of stuck out.
Yeah.
A little bit.
They had character.
They had
a lot of the other
character.
characters lacked character.
Yeah, they were kind of fairly bland.
Even the bad guy.
Apart from not having like a backstory or a life, or if you were trying to describe the character of them, it'd be a little bit difficult. So that again stuck out and felt a little bit awkward because they're not necessarily, the main characters. There's a whole bunch of people that were the main characters. So those were my thoughts. Maybe the last one was just visual effects. As I said before, felt like a tech demo.
Yep.
They had, what did I write down?
Wire work, lasers,
Wire work,
green screen.
miniatures, matte paintings.
Yep.
They developed their own camera motion control.
They had to because they weren't allowed to use the Dijkstraflex.
The Lucas one.
They were allowed, but the cost was
That's right,
prohibitive.
yeah.
They were just too
That's
many.
Lucas trying to stop other people from making Star Wars movies.
Yeah.
And then they developed their own ASIS system, which was apparently superior to the Dijkstraflex.
Yep.
So, and like every shot had some sort of
I don't know.
special.
This film is visually stunning. I don't like the design. I mean, we're in a spaceship and we're looking at straight floors and straight
Yes.
walls, and here it just doesn't feel like
Production
a spaceship.
design was lacking.
But
the
the
visual
quality of
effects,
the visual
yes.
effects, and this film was nominated for a visual effects Oscar.
Yeah.
It didn't. It lost against Alien,
Okay.
and it was up against Alien and also Star Trek: The Motion
That's
Picture.
right. Yeah.
And Alien got it, but it's deservedly
Yeah.
getting with visual effects nomination.
Well, I've got a question for you. Would this movie be a good film to remake in the modern day? Would you be able to make this film in the current climate?
They have discussed it. They have started writing scripts. They have disbanded Scripts again, so it's currently on hiatus.
Because we are living in the let's just do
Let's
everything
just redo.
again.
Yeah, exactly.
Is Event Horizon a
No, it's a dark.
No.
That's
The
a
Event
dark,
Horizon is
very dark film.
no?
that one.
I ask you again. Is Event Horizon actually the black hole?
No, I don't know.
No, they're not planning to go.
Even though it's
Event Horizon-
darker.
No, the whole come across the ship that's got the crazy
Okay.
guy at the bridge and everybody's dead, and I don't know.
It's a different theme. It's a different main theme.
Mm.
This is about the journey, as we said, from technology versus spiritualism, the spiritual journey, what's on the other side of life or the universe.
I think there's got to be some similarities
you were
because it's a
going-
black hole, right?
If you were going, what would you put into the remake? The remake wouldn't be an exact copy, right? You wouldn't just
No.
do it again.
No.
You'd probably have to fish out those little tiny elements.
See, the quality of this film is not the script. And the things that
True.
are memorable are the visuals
Yes.
and the jokes.
Yeah.
And these are unique to this film and these characters.
Yeah.
So a remake would be, a remake usually takes the story and gives it different visuals.
Mhm.
But with this film, the visuals are the
Yes.
good part.
Yeah,
Yes.
So a remake is probably not a good. Well, I don't know.
yeah.
Yeah.
I wouldn't.
It's certainly
Iconic.
something that Disney would try to remake, I think. Right? And you just throw Marvel sort of mindset at it.
And that starts to get into the,
Yeah.
could, but didn't think whether you should.
Yes, I think indeed. So that's our narrative look at the film, which included a lot of trivia and production stuff. There's a lot of that available, which makes it even more interesting. Let's rate the film before we do a couple of questions here, so I can test how closely you were paying attention. What would you give it in our rating system, Dan, of buy, borrow, burn?
Well, I don't think it's a burn. It's definitely not a burn.
Would you own it?
Look, another thing I was thinking is it's really in the genre of those classic 1950s sci-fi movies, Lost in Space type things. So if you're into that and you like that, I think it's a buy to keep on your shelf with those other things. Otherwise, it's a borrow.
All right, Tom.
That film has a warm spot in my heart because back when I saw it in the movies, and then I saw it on television, and I was really excited to finally see that film again in the mid-'80s, that I put my cassette recorder against the television. I had my 90-minute tape, and my brother and I, we were watching it. I said, be quiet, we have to be quiet. And we got the microphone against the thing, so we were really quiet watching the film, and occasionally you can hear us giggle. But I had that tape, the audio version, just the audio recording from that film, which I listened to several times as a teenager. Just the film. So I was very familiar with all the words. So when I just saw it recently, I think it was the first time ever that I saw it in the English version, and I kept hearing the German sentences, all this, like in the end when Maximilian Schell, when Dr. Reinhardt dies, he says, "More light." And this is, again, you die, you see the light, right? In the German version, he says, "Alles aus," all is lost. The completely different meaning. So, and that was interesting to see. No, it's a film that I've always liked, and so it is definitely, it's a buy.
It's a buy for you.
In fact, I was surprised that I don't already own it. I was looking through my DVD collection because I was hoping to watch the special features on a DVD, and I found that I don't actually own it yet.
Yeah. It. I saw it when I was young, and then I saw it again and loved it. Although some of it scared the shit out of me. Maximilian was very scary as a robot, and it certainly steps it up from a Star Wars sort of world. Later on, I probably didn't see it for a long time, 20 years, 30 years, something like that. And then I saw it recently, about 6 months ago, when we decided to possibly have a look at it. And I didn't like it. Right? It didn't measure up to my memory of it.
Interesting.
As is often the case.
Then I watched it again about 3 weeks ago.
Uh-huh.
Totally different experience.
So
and
decades of anticipation.
Yes.
Of course, it didn't match up to that.
Yeah, and then
So
I
you got to knock
watched
that
it.
over, get past that.
Yeah, get past my what had
Preconception.
formed
Yeah.
in my mind, and just watched it as a film. and I just enjoyed the narrative. I took note of the music. I took note of the set pieces and things like that. And mostly the music, it really sort of captured me and drew me in.
The storytelling is good. The pacing is good. It's a well-told story.
Yeah, it's just poor acting.
Poor story and poor characterization.
Yeah.
There's not much in the script.
The dialogue is a bit clunky and the acting is a bit poor, but generally speaking, it's a good film. So for me, it's a buy.
Mm-hmm.
I would certainly have this in the collection, and if it comes out on, we were fortunate enough to have like a 1080p version, but if it comes out on a 4K, I'll probably put that in the collection as a 4K and have it for prosperity.
Mm-hmm.
All right, gentlemen, let's have a bit of a quiz. I've got 10 questions for you. We may have discussed some of these during the show. We'll use our buzzers, so this might make a noise. This one. Let's just test your buzzers. Oh, hang on. Test your buzzers, Tom. And Dan. All right. We're ready to go. Question number 1.
Okay.
According to Dr. Kate McRae, what was the Palomino's mission?
We said that many times. That's
yes.
really...
Tom?
Yeah, yes, the search for... fuck!
Oh, he's lost it.
Ooh.
Habitable life. Intelligent life is
Now
what
that's fairly accurate. It's not exactly what she said.
right.
So
Dan gets
Dan, would you like to sweep in with the actual word for word version?
Find habitable life.
Well, that might be closer. The actual thing she said was to discover habitable life in outer space.
Oh, okay.
And she revealed it by saying that the Cygnus's mission was to find habitable life in outer space,
just
and
like
then
ours.
says just like us, just like
okay.
our mission. But I got to give it. It's close enough, but I'll give you a point each.
This
All right?
is fair. We both knew the answer.
Yes. Question number 2. What number designation was Vincent?
Oh God, never remember these numbers.
Oh, just
Quickly
wait long
looks
enough
on
until you
board.
see that. There it is. Where's the high res? Why is that not more high res?
All right, we're going to have to count down.
All right.
Okay, Dan's going to have a plug.
46.
Incorrect. Tom?
396.
It is
394.
final answer. What's your final answer?
394.
Both incorrect. It was LF 396. You had it
396.
right originally, and then you changed.
All right, next movie we watch, I'm going to have to write down every
No, you just
number
have to-
that I see in the movie. Or watch this more
I watched it, but the
closely.
resolution on the picture wasn't.
I should turn this off during the quizzes.
There it is.
You people.
No, I think that's fair to be able to
396,
check.
394.
LF short for labour force.
Oh, labour force. He's a
So he
slave.
was a slave. Question number 4. Vincent related.
Uh-huh.
Question number 3. Non-Vincent related. How many years did Reinhardt say he lived alone in space?
God.
Tom.
They said to him that it was 20 years. And he said, no, he was surprised.
Yes.
20 Earth years, perhaps.
Yes.
Because time around a black hole
Yeah.
is a bit slower, so he probably...
Yeah.
I don't think that he actually said a number.
So Tom is correct. It is 20 years.
This is unfair. The last thing I remember when watching any film is any of the numbers associated with the film.
With Dave, this is now what you have to
Yes.
concentrate on.
Surely you would be interested to learn how long he'd been living alone.
Yeah, I was at the time, but
there
then
it is. 396.
but then committing it to memory, no.
Okay. Question number 4.
Yes.
What does Vincent's name stand for? Dan.
It stands for Vital Information Necessary Centralized.
That's correct. That's correct. So the VIN is vital information necessary, and then the cent is the first 4 letters of centralized.
Yes.
And then labour force.
Then LF39 is labor for 396 is labor force. So they were clearly pulling that shit out of their ass to try to get it to say Vincent. So yes,
Could have done better.
yes.
So I completely remembered that one.
Dan gets the points. Question number 5. What year did the Palomino discover Reinhardt?
Numbers again.
Tom.
2130.
Oh,
Correct.
kind of remembered that.
Correct.
Way too late. Yes. I remembered 2130 because I remembered thinking, it's not too far in the future.
Yeah, it's only 97 years from now.
Yes.
Question number 6. Which character said, "Damn the torpedoes, full speed ahead"? Dan.
I don't know. It had to be Vincent.
Correct.
Yes.
When did he say that?
I don't remember, but I only know that he would say such a
In what
stupid,
situation?
pithy. That's exactly what his
It's one of
Was
character
this when
was.
they
pithy
were
one-liners,
flying
and
into
I
the
think
black hole?
I think from the trivia notes he quotes it. He quotes Horatio saying it or something, but it's not whoever he quotes
Damn
is
the
saying it.
torpedoes.
Oh no, not
Horatio
Horatio. Not Horatio. Oh no, he's a admiral, isn't he? Admiral
Yes,
Nelson.
Admiral Nelson,
Yes.
yeah.
I don't think they'd invented torpedoes when Nelson was
I
doing
think
his thing.
whoever he quoted was not the right person in reality.
Okay, right. It's one
The
of
person
those
that actually
Albert
said it was
Einstein
from
quotes.
but the person that actually said it was from the Civil War. All right. Question number 7. And by the way, it's 3-3 at the moment.
Whoa.
Okay. Is this a tiebreaker? Is this the last question?
No, it's question number 7. Complete the following statement. The word impossible is only found in the dictionary of blank.
God. Is this another Vincent?
It's
Yeah,
not a
yeah.
Vincent quote.
No, it's
It's actually said by Reinhardt.
Fools and idiots. Is my answer.
What's your final answer, Tom?
Fools and idiots.
Would you have another version of that?
Only
The
found in
narrow-minded.
the
Said narrow.
dictionary of people who don't try very hard.
Well, I've got to give it to Tom because it is fools,
Fools.
but not idiots.
Ah, okay.
So did you know that, or did you just
It seemed like
divinely
the logical way that
ins-
sentence should conclude, and maybe I've heard
So
the
you
movie too many
GPT
times.
chatted your way through that.
I think
Got a
during
brain.
dinner when Reinhardt reveals his plan to go into the black hole, Harry turns around to him and says, laughs at him and says, "This is impossible." He says, "Impossible is the word impossible is only found in the dictionary of fools." Question number 8.
Okay.
Which company distributed the film?
Ah,
Dan.
Buena Vista.
Correct.
What if I would have said the same?
You would have been wrong, and the points would have gone straight to me.
Question number 9. What colour were Vincent's lasers? Dan.
Red.
Correct.
All red. Everybody's lasers are red.
Yes, I don't think there's any other coloured lasers in this one.
No.
Question number 10. Current score is Dan 5, Tom 4. What were Bob's dying last words?
Oh God.
Tom.
Wasn't that when he says we are the best?
I will accept that. He says we're the best.
Oh, the conjunction. I didn't do a conjunction.
Yeah,
We're the best.
it is-
It should do it in the Texas drawl as
Yeah,
well.
that's right.
We're the best.
best.
We're the best.
So
We're the treasure.
So it's a dead heat, and there won't be any tiebreakers.
Yes.
I only come with 10 questions.
Very good.
You need to have an uneven number of questions.
I do need to have an unnamed, but that's a very good idea, Tom. From now on, I will have
Well, then
9
let's.
questions.
Okay, I
no,
think we
but
should
you have
then.
9 questions and Rick is here. Then that doesn't work. When Rick is here, you have to have 10 questions.
I'm
See?
So if we
taking all
need-
these ideas on board.
Look, I've got the solution. If we need,
I'll write that down.
If we
Odd
need to have odd number of
questions.
questions, we can then just scrap the last question.
Yes.
Okay,
All right.
agreed. Which means I win.
Because of
Hooray!
your great suggestion. Excellent.
All right. Well, that's our black hole quiz. And as it turns out, realistically, I had 10 questions, and you guys got all 10 with an answer. I don't think you missed a question.
No, not today.
What is going on?
That's not bad at all. Okay, gentlemen, that's our look at the 1980 Disney sci-fi adventure classic, The Black Hole. If you're watching this or listening to this and you like the ramblings of a bunch of geeks talking about film, then definitely reach out, leave us a comment, like, subscribe, dingle our bells, and we will see you on the next episode. It's bye for me.
Bye.
Auf Wiedersehen.
What is your industry? How many of you